Welcome back to another tutorial video. Now I've been inspired this week by Burns Night, which is a celebration normally held in Scotland to celebrate the life and works of Robert Burns. I've taken a bit of a Scottish theme and I've gone with a tartan colour combination based around this gorgeous bow that I have around my crate. Now the reason I have this piece of cellophane on the top is because I wanted to waterproof that container. So if I just move this out of the way, we can have a look at my mechanics and my base for today. Now I'm using this crate. It's quite a large size crate. It's probably about 30 centimetres by maybe 20 centimetres in width, and it's quite deep, and that's possibly going to cause me some problems in a moment. But my first thoughts are that because the container has these slats along the side, you tend to be able to see your floral foam or your plastic container or whatever you happen to be using. So I've started by lining my container with some brown paper. Now the brown paper we get here when our flowers are delivered. I try to keep it and recycle it if possible and use it in other applications, but it doesn't have to be brown paper. It could be some fabric. You might have something to match your bow on the front. You could have some neutral burlap or some hessian that you can place in there, but it is really only there to disguise and prevent you from being able to see the floral foam through the little slats. If you're doing it for personal use at home, that might not worry you and you might not be too concerned about the fact that you can see through it. But it annoys me when you can see your floral foam. Now if I jump to showing you my floral foam, what I'm going to use this week is the Fibre Flora. If you've been following me for a little while, you'll know that I'm not a great lover of this product. It's really quite hard to work with. It loses quite a lot of water as you're working with it. It's a product by Oasis, and it's a product that they've aimed at the eco-florist and somebody that's looking for something more environmentally friendly. And I do quite often get comments that I'm still using green floral foam, but it is very hard to find a really good replacement. Now you really do need to research products like this because they are sold as compostable, and this product will break down in the garden, but you have to really read up on the background information. It comes from basalt rock, and the process itself, allegedly, in making it is not particularly good for the environment. So sometimes we gain in one area but we lose in another, but it's definitely something that you can compost. You can put it on your home compost bin, and it literally breaks down to a very fine powdery sand. It's also good for using with seed cuttings and spring cuttings that you might have in the garden. So it has quite a few good points. Now one of the downsides of it is that it's very hard to use in this position. So when you try and insert flowers from the sides, whichever way you want to use it, but it is better used completely flat. It's something I think you've got to practice with. It's something that you've got to research the background information on and decide whether or not it's suitable for you. This one is by Oasis, and there is a company called AgroWool who I think came up with the idea in the beginning. Obviously I don't want to upset any of the manufacturers out there, and if any of that information is incorrect, then you can correct me in the comment box below. So the idea is that I don't want to see the brown foam through my container. One of the reasons that I'm not keen on using it is because the minute you insert flowers into the foam itself, it breaks and crumbles. It's quite hard to work with, and you get a lot of excess water that's, well, it wouldn't be excess water, but it forces the water out a lot more than it does with the green foam. So hopefully to help me with that situation, I've covered my Fibre Flora with some cling film, or saran wrap you might know it as if you're in a different country. You might be thinking, Sharon, why are you using a biodegradable or a compostable product and then using a single-use plastic? Well, this is a plastic-free cling film. This is something that will also break down and disintegrate into nothing. And what I've done is I've wrapped a couple of layers around it because I'm hoping that will strengthen the sort of integrity of the floral foam and it will stop it crumbling away. Now I have read that you can use this product dry, insert your flowers in dry, then soak it. So you'd have to pour water on top of it, and as the foam swells it almost locks in the stems of the flowers and makes it a bit more secure. And if you've got any hints and tips out there, then I'm happy to do another video exploring the different options that are available. So this is just on an ordinary plastic tray. Already, with just me talking about it and handling it, we've got quite a lot of water loss. So I don't want that leaking onto my crate, and I certainly don't want to leak it onto my brown paper. So now I'm going to have to line my container with some cellophane. Now this cellophane isn't biodegradable, although you can get plastic-free cellophane, but I can reuse it in a different application. And it doesn't have to be cellophane, it can be the wrapping that your flowers came in, it could be a plastic bag of some description. And the purpose or the reason behind me using it is that I don't want to get this paper wet. I could have used just cellophane to waterproof the container, but I didn't like the thought of the plastic cellophane shining almost out of harmony with the rustic design that I'm going to be doing. I didn't want you to be able to see the plastic cellophane through the little gaps in my wood container. So therefore I'm going to use some plastic wrapping. I'm just going to plop that into the middle. That's a technical term. I'm going to plop, and I'm going to push it down, put my foam inside. And what I'm possibly going to do, and I haven't quite decided yet, I thought you could come along the journey with me, is do I want to raise up my foam? No, I think we're going to be okay. I was considering putting an extra piece of floral foam underneath just to lift it up, but I think that's going to be fine. Now this bit is going to be a bit noisy. I'm just going to push down the cellophane so it's out of the way. And what that will also do is prevent the tray and the foam sliding. Now you might be thinking, Sharon, that's an awful lot of faff to prepare your floral foam, but now I've got a container that's really stable and isn't going to move around, and hopefully you can't see any artificial shiny sort of material through the edge there of that container. If you had ordinary moss available, you could easily push that down the side to create a much more rustic look. And if you've got any foliage in the garden that's quite tough and long lasting, maybe a laurel or a conifer, you could also use that to line the container first, and then you won't be using any type of single-use plastic. Now that's probably the longest introduction to any video. I started by saying I have a bit of a Scottish theme, and I've chosen to go with this lovely tartan. So we've got a blue green colour tartan. I might have used this in a previous video, and there are two other videos that I can link in the top corner here that I've done for Burns Night before. One is an interpretive design. I think I've done two. My brain's gone blank now as to what the second one is, but there are options for you to go back and have a look at. Now, because blue and green are very dark colours and are very recessive, I've also added a bit of a vibrant pop of pink just to lift the arrangement so it's not quite so dark when you're watching it on the camera. And I'm going to start this week. I have some florist flowers that I've actually bought from a florist shop. Normally I have flowers in, it's a quiet time of the year at the moment, so we haven't had a big Dutch flower order. So I've been to my friend's flower shop. I know lots of florists in the area, and I've picked up some fabulous flowers for you. But I'm going to start with two dried hydrangeas. These have been bought from the flower shop as well, and it's a really soft pink. At the moment it doesn't really go with that colour combination, but as we work the design along, the colours will work a lot better together. Now I'm going to do this as an all-round design, I think, so something you can see from front to back. It could sit in the centre of the table, or you could give it to somebody as a gift. I've intentionally chose two hydrangeas that are slightly different sizes because we don't want to have those two headlights staring at you when you make the arrangement. And instead of them facing forward, we're going to angle them from the middle, so we're rotating away from the centre, and I'm going to place them at two different angles. Now what I've got to be careful of, and what I've got to do quite slowly, is insert the stem of my flower through the cling film, through that plastic saran wrap, so that it goes right the way through and it goes into the fibre flora at the bottom. Now using cling film like this is a really good idea for flowers that have to last a long time. If you're doing wedding flowers and they're outside and there's a lot of heat and your foam is going to dry up quickly, using some cling film around the outside really does help. So what I've done here is started to create a bit of a dome shape. It's not perfectly matching because in nature flowers aren't matching and they don't grow perfectly, but I've got an even distribution of the colours on either side. Now, to go with a really lovely Scottish theme and to pick up the colour on my ribbon, I've got an Hydrangea and a really vibrant green chrysanthemum, which is looking almost a luminous green on the camera. It's not quite as bright as it is, but it's going to help pick up on that colour combination there. And to lift it slightly, and just so you can see different colour combinations, I've got a really pretty, I don't quite know if we'd call this apricot or cream. It's a very pale apricot-y pink. And to give a bit of a vibrant colour combination, I've got some amazing brightly coloured roses, which I think is probably aqua. I don't know all of the varieties this week because I haven't purchased them myself. I've just bought them from my local florist shop. And then I have this lovely filler flower, which I don't think I've talked about much on video tutorials. This is Limonium, and it's one of the Status family. It's like a sea lavender, and it will dry really nicely for you, although it does have quite a strong, pungent, fishy sea sort of smell to it, which can be a bit overpowering as it dries off. So to go with those, I have a little bit of greenery. I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to use it, because instead of foliage this week, I've picked up a heather plant. I often say to you, look in supermarkets, look in the cheaper budget shops for plants, because sometimes it's cheaper to buy a plant than it is to buy foliage, and you could plant it in the garden after, so it comes back for the following year. So that's my sort of flower combination and my flower choice. And I'm going to start initially with the heather. Now, the heather is not particularly long, so what I'm going to do with this is use it to cover my base and cover my floral foam. Now, one of the benefits of having your foam below the edge of the container is that we can't see it, so we don't have to worry too much about using lots of foliages to cover that floral foam. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to work my way around, just adding in this quite soft texture all the way around. Now, if you're a keen gardener and you can grow heathers in your garden, it's a really good one to have because they're quite versatile and they don't take a lot of looking after, but they do like a very specific soil. They don't like my garden at all. And I'm just working them through in between the hydrangeas, so we've got a variety of textures and a little bit of base colour and base weight in the arrangement. And really, from that angle, you can't see the floral foam at all. Now what I'm going to do is go slightly longer with some more of the softer filler flower. And quite often, particularly when I'm teaching designs like this, I will use the filler flower at the end to fill in any gaps. But this time, I'm using it first because I'm using it almost like you would your foliage to create your outline shape, get your foam covered, and to give you a bit of contrast again in texture. Now, you'll hear me talk about contrast, harmony, elements and principles of design. And if you're interested in learning more, then there are lots of lessons that you can pay for via the online website, sharondower.com. And I also have some leaflets that are over on Etsy, which are only a couple of pounds, that you can buy that explain the elements and the principles of design. You can download them, keep them for future reference, and you'll find those in my Etsy store, which I'll link in the description box for you. Right, so I've been working with this facing you. The bow is obviously the front of the design. If you wanted to make it front facing, then you wouldn't need to worry about bringing material towards the back. But I've done a really nice all-round arrangement. Although my container is rectangle, so really it's an all-round rectangle design, which I might have just invented. But that's the shape for today. And it's working really quite well. The stems are quite strong and robust, so they're going through that cling film quite well. Might be a bit harder when I come to use the Gerbera, but for a minute it's working quite well. And that's a lovely shape, although I totally agree there's no connection at the moment with my bow there at the front. And now I'm going to introduce that blue thistle, or the Hydrangea. and that will help give me a link between the container and the flower arrangement itself. And what I've done there is I've cut one stem into two so I can get more flower value out of my one stem. Now I've mentioned already that this would make a lovely table centre. Whoop, that's not quite going into the, there we are. You can almost feel when it breaks through the layer of the cling film. And what you can also do, if you're finding it hard, is to get yourself either an old stem like this or a kebab stick, and you can poke a hole in the cellophane first. But at the moment it's not too bad. Right, so I've got two stems of the blue thistle. Now I've got a very vibrant green bow at the front because I knew I was going to be using green chrysanthemums, but if I took this away or replaced it with something that was dusky pink, I could get away with that softer colour combination quite easily. Right, so let's go with my Gerbera. Now this is where I might start having problem because the Gerbera is quite soft stem, and I need to guide it into that plastic or through that plastic wrap so that it goes right the way down into the fibre flora. Now you might be thinking, Sharon, how are you going to keep that floral foam hydrated? There's no way are you going to be able to add water to it. Well, the idea is that the cling film, that plastic wrap, retains the moisture and stops it evaporating, so you don't need to add water without using that cling film. Now I have just remembered that I've also got, I'd forgotten to mention it, I've got the green carnation. Now this is like a Sweet William, and it's been bred so that you've got this lovely tuft of green, and that again is one of the reasons why I chose that green ribbon bow. So we're going to put this in first. It's quite a big flower, and I'm going to aim to get the bigger, more dominant flowers in first. And I'm looking to spread the colour out so that we have it somewhere towards the front, somewhere towards the back and sides, on both the left and right side of the arrangement. Always make sure that if you are using that cling film, that you've punctured your stem right the way through so it has got access to the water. If I just tilt that forward, you'll see that I've spread some of the flowers through the hydrangeas so that we're breaking up the very big massed head of the hydrangea. Now I've still got room that I can add in my roses in that section there. And that's going to be my next flower. So these fabulous, very vibrant pink is now going to give us a real splash of colour. It's a colour combination that I love. I love the pinks and the blues together and that pop of lime green. And I wanted to add in that nice vibrant bow at the front to really give me a bit of a Scottish theme. You could of course gone with a different style of arrangement, but I knew I had that lovely ribbon. But you could of course look for inspiration somewhere else, or you could recreate this for a completely different occasion. Right, okay, so we've got a sort of squared design sitting so that you can see the flowers from front to back. I'm quite pleased with how that's turned out. If I look from this direction here, I can see some of the brown paper that I've used to hide the gaps, but I'm going to work on that in a moment. My last flower to go in is going to be the chrysanthemum, and probably in hindsight this maybe wasn't the best flower to pick because by the time I've broken it down the stems aren't particularly long to get into the arrangement. So maybe bad planning on my decision, but I initially thought I was going to make a hat box and I changed my mind at the last minute. Right, let's just get rid of a few of those leaves because they're looking a bit sad. Now what I've got to try to do is to balance off that quite vibrant green and tuck a few of the smaller, shorter pieces down through the front. Now you maybe won't pick these up from the camera because they are quite low, but this is called recession. It draws your eye right down to the base of the arrangement, helps to give the arrangement depth, and will also help to cover my floral foam as well. And I've only got 3 of these, so we'll work those right the way round. And then I'm going to use this final piece. Needs a bit of a trim to tidy it up. Let's just see what we can do. There we are. It's a nice, fairly long piece, which I think will sit nicely in this position. And then I've got one long stem, which hopefully will go over on this right-hand side somewhere. Now you can see I had a bit of a problem with that, and that's because it's a thin stem, it's quite weak, it's quite hard to get it through those different layers. Now I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to put some foliage in, but I think it needs a bit of height in the arrangement to make it more proportionally balanced with the container. So by adding in some longer branches or some longer stems of the eucalyptus, it's going to heighten the arrangement and make the design a bit more imposing, because I don't want the container to be the more important and the more dominant piece. So we're going to make use of the greenery to make the design a little longer. Now if you don't have a crate like this, you could use a box. You might be able to find a decorative box, tartan effect, or something that's got heather and mountain scenes and moorlands and that type of thing on it, and you could use that instead of the box. You could use a rectangular container. You might have something like a lasagna dish or a cooking container that you can use. So don't feel that if you haven't got the same container as me, you're limited and it's going to prevent you from making the design. Just find something that's similar size, similar shape. This is obviously quite deep, and you don't necessarily need anything that's quite as deep as this one. And do what I do, go and look in the charity shops. I don't think possibly this time of the year is the best time to look. You want to wait until people are spring cleaning and they're getting rid of some of their household items. So just a few more pieces of the eucalyptus, and anything that's evergreen you can use in a design like this. If you had longer pieces of heather, you could use those, but I'm restricted because they were quite short. That really vibrant pink lifts the overall arrangement, and I think that's really quite lovely, although I do say so myself. So this is my design for the forthcoming celebration for Burns Night. You can adapt this for any season, any birthday or any event that's taken place, and I hope you've really enjoyed that one. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. We're heading into 2024. If there's anything you would like me to talk about, or any designs that you would like me to show you here on the YouTube channel, then please put it in the comment box. Don't forget, like and share, tell all your friends about us so that the channel really does have a chance to grow. Stay to the end of the video so that you can see some stills of the design, and I look forward as ever to seeing you for the next video. So thanks for watching, bye for now, we'll see you again very soon.